Propaganda in a democratic society. It's a very important subject to me because I'm training to become a journalist, and as journalists, we are being taught that we have to protect democracy is the center of our job, and propaganda is one of the big menace. It's one of the big risks that threaten democracy. Yeah. So let's get started. First, we're going to talk about what is democracy. Then we will stop more in depth into what is propaganda. Then we're going to see how we can protect ourselves against it. And finally, I'll make a quick conclusion. So first, what is a democracy? A democratic system is shaped like a pyramid. Right at the top, you have the elite. It's the government and the institution. Then you have the medias, which are majoritarily the journalists, but also communication professional, marketing people, social relationship, etc. So then we have the public space, which is a place for a debate. It's a metaphorical space. And right at the bottom, we have the population, which is us. We can see that the communication can go from the top all the way to the bottom, but it can also comes from the population and go all the way up to the elite. So this is a healthy democratic system with a good communication flow. I'm gonna talk more in depth about the public space. So it's a theory. It was thought by Kant. And the public space is the place where you can think, debate, question, and protest. So this is the place where you can say, I disagree with mask wearing, for example. But in the private space, you have to act and obey. If you disagree with mask, you're allowed to say it, but you still have to wear it because it's important for the society. So this is how it works. What is propaganda? So propaganda was thought, especially by two people in the United States. Walter Lippmann, he was an intellectual and a journalist, and he is the one who invented the term manufacturing consent, and he is also the one who popularized the use of the term the Cold War to talk about the war between the United States and Russia. So he only did theory, he never really applied what he thought. It's Edouard L. Bernays who really did the practical work. He was the father of political propaganda and public relations and marketing. He was twice the nephew of Sigmund Freud, and his theory in psychology really helped Bernays apply the theories of Walter Lippmann to the real life. So in propaganda, they use a variety of techniques to divert your attention or to force you to believe. So the first one is repetition. The more you say a message, the more it's going to be believed. Variety of sources, repeating the message, is also a technique to make it seem more believable. For Minutemen, there were people that were paid to stand in the street and yell the same message every 4 minutes. So it goes with repetition. The two-step flow, it is the name of the technique used. What it means is that the information does not come from the government in itself, but it comes from the government to a secondary source like a journal or influencer, and then it comes to you. Then they use the emotional language rather than rationality. They don't try to convince you, they try to persuade you. And then when you're emotional, you cannot really think clear. And one other technique is the manipulation of vocabulary. I have an example. The word democracy, we did a quick definition of what it was. And for Walter Lippmann and for Edouard Bernays, the population is not able to make decisions for themselves because they are an ignorant mass and only the elite can do the work. So they have to manufacture the consent of the population. So they will say yes to what you say, but they're too stupid to make the decisions themselves, pretty much. So what does a propaganda piece look like? This is propaganda from the United States during the Cold War. As we can see, they use vocabulary that is destined to create fear. So we can see here godlessness, slavery, death, deception. Here we see a diabolical. So this is word we describe communists. And the imagery is also very heavily emotionally charged. We can see blood, we can see ball and chain representing enslavement. We can see weapons and skulls and missiles. So it creates a very emotionally charged image that you react. You don't use your logic when you see these sort of things because you're too afraid. So in a system that would be completely dominated by propaganda, the triangular structure we saw is going to be completely perverted. So at the top, there is the elite who has full control of public matters. Then there is no more journalist, only propaganda diffuser. Influencer who are able to spread the word to the population who is an ignorant mass and cannot make decisions for themselves. And there is no communication flow from the population to the elite because why listen to them? How can we protect ourselves against propaganda? So there is a few techniques. First of all, you have to research everything. You have to research your sources and make sure that you know the motivation of people for saying what they're saying. And you have to ask yourself, what does this person has to gain in making me believe what they're saying? Then you have to use your critical mind and you have to be able to detach yourself from the emotional reaction you can have from a propaganda piece and try to think rationally. Then you have to participate in politics and in the public debates so you can make yourself heard and make sure that the elite does not abuse the system or abuse you. And finally, we have to have better education, especially political education for adults, so people would be able to participate and use their critical mind and research efficiently. So in conclusion, why is knowing about propaganda important? It's because if you don't want to be manipulated by corporations or by government institutions, it's important to be able to see critically the messages they send us, because democracy is never acquired. It's never perfect democracy, nothing to do. It's a constant battle against conflicting interests. And it's important to keep ourselves up to date and to keep fighting. And why is it important for me? Well, as I said, I'm planning to becoming a journalist in the next few years. And the perfect world for people who use propaganda is a world without journalists, and obviously we don't want that. So it's important for me that people are able to make decisions for themselves and are able to see and make the difference between a good informational source and propaganda. So thank you for listening. Have a good day.